Good afternoon, everyone. In this class, what I'm going to show you is how to create objects and classes in C#. Now, the previous classes, what we've been doing is that we have an example that basically have a ball moving on the screen, and this ball bounces on the wall and then comes back. We did it in a non-object oriented manner. What we have one form, and in that form we have a timer. In that timer we create the graphics, and then we say I want to draw a particular ball in a particular position. For example, fill a rectangle. This one, the fill rectangle, the first one, it clears the screen, the background. Then we draw the ball based on a position. And we have X and Y that allow the ball to move on the screen. And this X and Y basically changes based on if you hit the boundary or not. So every time I add, if I go beyond the screen width, I change the value I want to add to X to -2. If I hit the if I come out of the screen from the left side, means that X is less than 0, then I change it to positive, so it starts moving to the right. Then we have the same thing for Y, and the same thing for, at the end we have X and Y, and we have X and Y, and then what happens? It draws it on the screen. You go back and repeat the same process and over in a timer. Now the challenge that I gave you is that what about if we want to create 3 balls? What would you have to do? Basically, you will have to repeat the same code for every ball, and you will have to create different X and Y for every ball, right? That is not the proper way of doing it. The proper way of doing it is that we create an object-oriented. If you're designing a game or you're designing things that you can create, you need to create multiple copies of the same thing, but the values inside of it changes, what called the attribute changes, then we create classes. Okay? So on the board we have a class. We decided that we have a class that needed called ball, and that class have the attributes that are needed to draw, which are what? X, the position of X, and Y. And then we have the size, and then we have the brush, the color that we want to fill the ball with. In addition to that, we need to be able to draw this ball and move it around. So we came up with 2 methods. One is called move, and one of them is called draw. The draw receives the graphics because I need to draw. I can only use graphic functions to draw, and the move, it needs the size of the screen. The reason is the size of the screen because I don't want the ball to get out of the boundaries of the screen that I'm in. Alright, enough talking, and let's take a look at the program. How do we create a class in C#? You can do it. You can go right click on the Solution Explorer, and then you right click on the project, and then you can click on add a new item. The item that we need is called what? Which one do we use? We use code. We don't use data, general, web, blah, blah, all of this. We use code to create the class. When I select code, I can select the class that I want to create. Now if I click on add, I have to give it a name. I guess we didn't give it a name. It's called class 2, but we don't want class 2. We want to make it actually called ball. Okay, so delete. And then let's repeat it again. Add a new item. Okay, and the name of this is what? We want to give it a name called ball. Yeah? And then we click on add. Now we have the class that we have that we created. It's called ball. In order to use graphic, do you know what this thing called? These are libraries or packages in C# or Visual Studio that allow you to use things, okay, that may be not available in your class, but you can include them so you can use them. If you go to the form that we created earlier, if you go on top, you'll notice that you have all these things, but we don't have all of them where in the other one that we just created, which is called ball, right? If you notice, I have only few here. But if I go in there, I have a lot more. Yes? One of them is of an interest to us, which is called what? Drawing. If we want to use the graphic and the drawing, we want to make sure that we include this in my other class. So I'm going to do control copy from here, and then we go back to ball, and then control V. Now this allow me to do what? Allow me to use the graphic objects in order to draw. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to use the graphic objects. All right, let's take a look at the things that we need, the properties that we need. So we have a class called what? Ball. All the attributes that you define them inside the class. So first, we need to define what? We need to define my attributes, which are what? Public int x. All right. What is public and what is int x? Public allow you to access data or attribute outside the class. If you make it private, it means you can only use it inside the class. But because I want to be able to change it from outside the class, I want to do what? Define it as public. All right. Next, I need what? I need y. So I'm going to say public int y. And then again, public int size, which is what? The size is the size of the ball that we want to create. Because it's a ball, of course, you can't have a ball that is elliptical. You can, but it doesn't make sense. Usually balls are rounded. So that's why I said size. But if you remember, in the function that you created called draw ellipse or fill ellipse, you need the width and the height. But because it's a ball, the width and the height would be the same, so we call it only one thing called size. So we have three of the attributes that determine the shape and the position of the ball. The other thing that we need is what? The color that we want to fill this ball with, which is the brush in C#, okay, or Visual Studio. So we have to create something called brush. Again, public brush. And then we call it my brush, okay? All right? All right, what else do we need? We need so we define the attributes. Now we need to define what? We need to define the methods. And as we agreed, the method that we needed are move and draw. So let's start with the draw. So we define a method called public void. And then what do we want to name this? Move. No, not move, sorry, draw. Now to draw, we agreed that we need what? We need the objects that allow me to draw, which is graphic object. So here I have to have a graphic objects that allow me to draw, which I'll type in graphics G. Notice if I didn't have this method, I didn't have this library included or this package, which is system.drawing, this will give me an error. I'm going to comment it out to show you. So if I go in here and then just comment it out, notice you will get error on the brush and then you get error on the graphics. Why? Because now it's saying those are not defined. I don't know where they are. I can't find them. But if we include it again now, it's happy. You got the idea? What should we do in the graphic? In the drawing? We need to draw the ball, right? Based on what? Based on X, Y, the size, and the brush. Okay? So all I do in here, I say G dot fill ellipse. And then here, what do? I'll say graphics. Sorry, brush, or my brush, the one that I have in my class, then X, Y, and then the size. One more, right? Again, size, because we need two parameters. Okay. Do you understand what we're doing here? Let me put it on pause. The values that we use in here will have values, or these variables will have values, attributes from the class that is using this class ball. So when we create a ball in another class, we change the attributes, and then we can draw it. All right? Now what else do we need? We need the move, right? Now we already have the logic for the move, but let's create the move and say public again, public move, public void move, and then what do? We say we need again int width and height. And why do we need those? We agreed. Why do we need the width and the height? Because I don't want the ball to get out of the boundary of the screen that I'm drawing in. So I use these as my criteria to make sure the ball does not bounce out of the screen. All right? All right. So we've created the structure of the class so far, but we finished the draw. That's easy. But about the move, it's tricky, because there is logic and there is you adding X and Y and things like that. So what do we need to do? We need to get the value, or need to get the logic that we already done from the previous class and copy it in here. I have the logic here, right? The moving logic, right? You see all of this? If X greater than blah, 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 all of this. I can take this and do what with it and put it in my class. Yeah? And then I can use it in my class. Okay? So if I do control copy and go back to my ball class that we just create, and then we put it in here in the move. Obviously, the width does not belong to this class, because this is just a class, it's not a form. So I'm going to delete all this reference. So we have to use only width, which is W, small w. Okay, so small w. Then we have again height. We have to use our height, right? The one that we just used in the class, which is small h here. But we still have a problem, because I have value and value not defined. What are the values? Values are the one that I use to change the direction of the ball. So where do I do that? I need to define them again in a class so I can use them in my method and they return their values. So we go up, and then again we define this attribute. Either we define them here, or no, we have to define them here. What do we say? We say int. Now the values that we have here, this value and this value, should we allow people to change it from outside, or is it only used in this class? Only this class, right? So instead of making it public, we make it what? Private. That means nobody else can change it. We can only change it in here. So I make it here private, and then we call it value, and then we start with value equal and we will make it equal to 2 to start with. I'll show you next how we can make it, we can have balls moving at a different speed in the second part. Okay? And this is integer, right? And then we do the same thing for what? The other one is what? Control, what's the other one that we're using? Value y, right? So value y, okay? So we copy this, control copy, and then control V, and then we make it value y equal 2 again. All right. So now I have the move method, which is the logic that we had there, right? And then I have the draw method, which also comes from there. And I have my attributes that I can use. Okay? Let me put it on pause so everybody can catch up. Okay? Okay, so now the next step after we finish with our class, we go back to the form that we were using and then create different copies of this class. And no need for the code that we have there before. So what do? We go back to the form, and you can delete it or just comment it. I'm just going to comment it so you'll see the difference. Okay, how about the background? Do we need the background or not? Do we need to change the background or not to black every time? Yeah, so the background logic stays the same. The only logics that we don't need anymore is that the one that pertains to the ball, right? So what do? We comment this out from here all the way to this. Yeah? We don't need it anymore. You can delete it if you want to, but leave it as an example. Okay? Type. Up above, here I have something called, what do you call this? Do you remember? What do you call public form 1? Do you remember? What do we call this? Notice what's the name of the class? Yeah, Sabaya. What is the name of the class? Form 1. What is the name of this method? Form 1. So what is this called? Constructor. Yeah? What is a constructor? When you say new blah blah blah, you're creating a new object and you're calling one of the constructors. Right? What is the function or what is the purpose of a constructor? To initialize things. So in the constructor, I'm going to create 2 balls first. Alright? And then in my timer, I just move them and draw them. Move them and draw them. Get the idea? So in the class itself, I'm going to define 2 objects. What is the name of the class? The ball class? Ball, right? I'm going to create red ball, comma, green ball. Yeah? Instead of defining variables here, I'm just defining red ball and green ball, right? Type. In the initialization, when you initialize things, you can, like before your program starts, I want to create things, which are, I want to create my balls so I can use them in the class, right? Type. Here we say red ball equal to what? Equal new ball, right? Oops. Control Z. I deleted something. We say red ball equal new what? A new ball, right? The class that we just created. Now what else is needed for this ball? We have to change the attributes. What are the attributes? The X, the Y, the size, and what? The brush. Yeah? So we have to say red ball dot X equal dot to what? Any number. 100. Okay? Easy, right? Why is this saying a problem? Oh, sorry. Okay, so x red ball dot x equal 100, and then what do? Just control copy this, control V, because we need it 3 times. And then instead of x, we say y here. Yeah. And then here we say size. The 100 is too big, right? So we make it what? We'll make it 20 or 30. One more thing that is needed is what? The brush. So we say red ball dot brush, my brush equal brushes dot, because it's red we use the red, right? So from here to here I set up my object. I created my object, I changed the attributes, and I'm ready to use it. What do we think? What do you think that we have to do for the other class? The other object that we want to create? Same thing, right? Instead of red, we use what? Green. And then the position, we can decide on where we want this thing to be placed. So I can do what? I can just copy this. Well, okay, you can copy it. And then do what? Instead of red, what do we use here? We say green, right? And then just do green, green, and then green, and then green. And here, but instead of red, we use a green. So the first time my form gets created, it calls this constructor, which is form 1. In the constructors, I create my objects that I want to put on the screens. So I have a red ball, and then I have a green ball, and now I'm ready to use them. Right? In my timer, all I have to do is say draw, and then move. Draw, then move. Right? And how about this position? Of course, if I put it now, they are in the same position, right? I don't want them to be in the same position. I want this one to do what? To be at a different place. Let's say 200x. Leave it 200 and 100. So you'll have 2 balls next to each other. Okay? All right. And then maybe one smaller than the other. So let's make this one 20. Yeah? So now, notice I created objects. I can determine the properties of that object. I can decide on how they want to look like. All right? Okay, now we go to the timer. In the timer, all I do, I say red ball dot draw. Yeah? I have to give it the graphic objects that I already created above. Do you see that? The graphic objects that I already have here. So I pass it to the other method. So I'll say red ball dot draw using the graphic. If I want to draw the other one, what do I do? Green, right? Green ball dot draw. And then again we pass G. I'm not going to move it first. Let's test it and see if it works. Now, how many things should appear on the screen? 2. Watch. If I run it, I have 2 balls. If I want to create another one, copy another object, and then I just use it in there. Now I want to move it. What command or what function allow me to move it? All I have to do in the timer again, I simply say red ball dot move, right? And then I have to give it what? This dot width, comma this dot what? Height. Yes? So let's do one only and see if it works. Run it and see what happens. Now the red ball is moving. Yeah? Why the other one is not moving? Because we did not tell it to move, right? When we are ready, when we want it to move, what do? I say move, right? Is that clear? Now if I go here and I say green ball also move, and again this dot width, comma this dot height. Yes? Now go ahead and run it. Then you have one small ball and one big ball. They're both moving different places on the screen. Let me just finish this video and I'll come and help you out. Which one is better way? This one or the previous one? Why is this one better way? You don't have to repeat things, right? Repeat codes. Which one do you think reduces error? This way or the other way? Why this one reduces error? Because if we do it right the first time for one ball, then it's right for all of them, every copies that we do. Otherwise, what would happen? You copy the code, you're more likely to make mistakes. All right? So that is the end of this lesson. Next time we will continue with this exercise. Okay?